I recently upgraded to the ROG Ally X from the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme, and I honestly wasn't expecting it to be so good. So the Ally X has been out for nearly a year now, so why did I just now decide to get my hands on it? Well, let's jump into a little bit of backstory. About a year ago, I bought the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme and I fell in love with handheld gaming. I had so much fun with that thing. I ultimately bought a second handheld, and that was the LCD Steam Deck. To keep a long story short, both my original ROG Ally and my Steam Deck filled different holes in my gaming life. Unfortunately, my ROG Ally Z1 Extreme had some significant downsides that rendered it good but not amazing. The ROG Ally X, at least on paper, could fix most of the issues that I had with the Z1 Extreme. At first, I was skeptical that the ROG Ally X would be much of an upgrade. After all, they have the same Z1 Extreme processor, they have the same screen, they have pretty much the same design. And yes, the Ally X does have 24 gigabytes of faster RAM over the previous 16 gigabytes of RAM. The battery is double the size. There are small improvements to the gamepad and I/O, but does this translate to a significant improvement over its predecessor? Well, I decided to buy the Ally X to find out for myself, and I wasn't disappointed. I was really impressed, actually. Before I talk about performance though, I want to talk about some of the other small improvements, which in my opinion are actually really big improvements over my Z1 Extreme, and they fix most of the issues that I personally had with the device. So let's start with ergonomics. The design is the exact same as before, but it's noticeably quite a bit thicker, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it really helps with the overall ergonomics of the device, which are not my favorite on the Z1 Extreme. I can get a better grip, and it just feels much better to hold. It's also now black instead of white, which I personally really like, but from a practical standpoint, it's much better at hiding dirt and grime. From an I/O standpoint, there's now an additional USB-C port on the top, and we no longer have that pointless XG Mobile port for ASUS's proprietary eGPU support. This opens up the possibility of me buying an eGPU in the future without breaking the bank. The extra port also gives me more flexibility when docking and using it with a monitor. The micro SD card slot has also been moved, and this is a big deal because countless Z1 Extreme users were running into issues with their micro SD cards burning up from the heat of the device. It scared me to the point where I just never used my micro SD card slot on the Z1 Extreme. ASUS has addressed this issue on the Ally X by moving the SD card slot further away from the previous hotspot, and even better yet, has drastically improved cooling on this device with better ventilation and better fans. This is one area where my expectations were exceeded in every way. The Ally X is quieter, it runs noticeably cooler, and I don't have to worry about it melting my micro SD cards. Now let's talk about the battery. It's double the size, it's a massive upgrade from my Z1 Extreme, and when I bought the Z1 Extreme, the bad battery life was something that I told myself that I didn't mind. I could maybe get 2 hours on a AAA game running lower settings and running on 15-watt mode, but performance kind of suffered, it wasn't great, and then running on turbo mode, I'd be lucky to get an hour of gaming on a AAA title. I told myself it's fine because most of the time I'm just playing on my couch and I could be plugged in, and yeah, honestly, it's not that bad to be plugged in. I would still rather be lounging on my couch than sitting at my desk where I spend my entire working day, but the cord gets in the way, it's kind of annoying, and then you have to make sure that you're close to an outlet. On top of that, there were plenty of times where I would go game outside or I'd be traveling, and the battery life just is not enough in those scenarios. With the Ally X, I can get nearly 2 hours of gameplay on AAA titles rocking turbo mode and upwards of 3.5 hours or more running on performance mode, and all of that at higher quality. For me, it's now enough battery life to where I don't have to worry about being plugged in. It really does make for such a better experience. Of course, you do have to be plugged in to utilize the full performance potential, but running turbo mode on battery is more than enough for me most of the time. Just those improvements alone make this a worthwhile upgrade for me, but it gets even better with the performance. Before I jump into that, I just want to preface this with I'm not a benchmark guy. If you've watched my other videos up to this point, you already know that. I just want to talk about real world performance. I'm going to show you some comparisons between different games on my Z1 Extreme and my Ally X and show you some different frame rates that I'm getting, but I'm not going to get super technical. I just want to talk about my overall experience with the Ally X. So with that said, the Ally X is in fact noticeably faster and better performing than my Z1 Extreme. I honestly wasn't expecting much. I didn't think the RAM upgrade would make that big of a difference, but I was definitely wrong. The Ally X surprised me. Just how much faster is it? Well, I'll show you. I've loaded up 3 of my favorite games to play right now: Red Dead Redemption 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and BeamNG Drive. I've made sure that they all have the same graphics settings across both devices for this test, and instead of using the default 17 watt performance mode on the Ally X, I've created a custom 15 watt mode to match the standard 15 watt performance mode on my Z1 Extreme. I then of course tested the 25 watt turbo mode, which is now by default on the Ally X. So first up, Red Dead Redemption 2. I pulled the settings I'm using from ROGAllyLife.com. My Z1 Extreme at 15 watts was able to average around 30 frames per second with some dips into the high 20s. I'm in a section of the game that is somewhat demanding. If you've ever played Red Dead Redemption 2, you know that the cities tend to be a little bit more demanding, so frames per second are a little bit on the low side, but still playable here. My ROG Ally X at 15 watts was pretty similar, averaging around 32 frames per second. This wasn't at all surprising to me, but you can see a tiny performance boost over the Z1 Extreme in the 15 watt mode. Here's where it gets interesting though. On 25 watt turbo mode, the Z1 Extreme is able to average around 39 FPS, which is pretty solid, but the Ally X on turbo is able to average around 55 frames per second, which is actually quite a bit higher. On Cyberpunk 2077 with medium settings, I saw something similar. On 15 watt mode, both the Z1 Extreme and the Ally X weren't really playable on medium settings, both just kind of hovering around 19 frames a second. On turbo mode, very different story. The Z1 Extreme was averaging right around 30 FPS, which is definitely playable, but the Ally X was able to average around 40 frames per second, which is fantastic. And with medium settings in this game, it looks absolutely incredible on the ROG Ally display. More tweaking of the settings could of course optimize visuals and performance, but you can again see a pretty significant boost on the 25 watt turbo mode. BeamNG drive was also similar, though less drastic. On 15 watt mode, the Z1 Extreme was averaging around 27 to 28 frames per second, with the Ally X also being right around that at 28-29 frames per second. In turbo mode, the Z1 Extreme hovered around 35 frames per second, and the Ally X was around 37-38 frames per second. So not a massive performance boost on BeamNG drive, but still notable. It's obviously going to vary from game to game how much of a performance difference you see, but having played many different games now on the ROG Ally X for the last month, I think it's pretty safe to say that the ROG Ally X is about a 20 to 25% performance increase over its predecessor. This is by no means scientific, but again, it is absolutely a noticeable increase in performance. The only thing I don't really like about the Ally X is also something that I don't like about my Z1 Extreme Ally, and that is Windows. It's just annoying to deal with, honestly. The updates, the crashes, the UI, I don't like the UI that much. And Asus's Armory Crate, which is kind of their answer to SteamOS, just sucks if I'm being real. It's super slow and buggy in my experience. It's not ideal. But you can get around those things and deal with them. It's a small price to pay for incredible performance in my opinion. Overall, I've been very impressed. It's way more worth it, in my opinion, to get the ROG Ally X at this point over the Z1 Extreme. At the time of making this video, the Ally Z1 Extreme is $650 and the Ally X is $800. Considering you get an extra 512 gigabytes of storage standard on the Ally X and a battery that is twice the size, those two things alone are worth the additional $150. But then you top it all off with a really solid performance bump and the Ally X becomes a pretty solid value. But what do you guys think about the Ally X? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you think of this video. Also give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Tell me what you'd like to see next. I'm really hoping to improve the quality of my videos and grow this channel. Please like and subscribe, and of course turn on notifications. That way you can see the videos right when they come out, and that'll go a long way in helping me grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on SparkPoint.